A chilly welcome, and it is blooming chilly in the wilds of Bedfordshire, to Podful of Saints, episode number 17, on Wednesday. I think I've got that right this week, the 23rd of November, 2022. With myself, David Tavener, and over there, nodding away, sagely, Jake Ellacott.
Hello, Dave. Hello, Lee. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all well and you're wrapped up warm.
You got to be. Are you wrapped up warm, Lee Wood, over there?
I'm always wrapped up warm, Dave, but also I've got a nice glass of Vin Rouge, which always warms the cockles on a nice chilly day.
All I can afford is Adam's Ale, but there you go. Right. We got a couple of games to look back on. We got a couple of defeats to look back on. We got the end of our cup runs for this season to look back on. It's glory all the way this week. Last Saturday at Clarence Park, we entertained Kidderminster Harriers of National League North, somewhere up there. In the FA Trophy, second round, wasn't it? Our one and only appearance in it, this competition. I know you two weren't there, and it's interesting. When Lee and we were talking with Lee before this, and there's various different views of a performance. So Lee might chuck in some of those that he's picked up from other people. But my take on it, we started well. We did start very well. Magnificent goal. If you get a chance to see it on the whatever they call it. It's a great move, and Mitchell Weiss stuck it away with a glorious toe poke. And it all looked to be good. We were cutting them open quite easily. But I felt we were victims of our own downfall. We played too deep. We were playing the ball across our penalty area, and we got caught 2 or 3 times first half. They could have punished us for those, and we didn't learn. We kept playing. And although none of that tip-tapping around at the back may have contributed to a goal against us, it did give Kidderminster the impetus to push on at us, and in the second half they just carried on, and we weren't able to change the way we were going, and the chances we created in the first half, they just disappeared. And yeah, I didn't think they were a good Kidderminster side. I know they won 2-1 at Telford in the week as well, after coming back from a goal behind, so they're picking up a bit now thanks to winning at our place. And I thought, as I say, we should have done better. We could have won that game, and it was our own fault. And I wouldn't blame the players. I would say it's the tactics they were told to play. And we saw it a bit at Slough. We saw it a bit at Eastbourne, where we only had one shot on target, because we just played too deep. We're not creating enough. And if we're going to carry on like that, we're going to go back to how we were early in the season, trying not to lose games rather than trying to win games. Over to one of you two.
Blimey, where do we start with that, JK? I mean, how do we dissect that nonsense, mate? Goodness me. One thing I would say, Dave, is that all good sides win 2-1 away to Telford, I have to say.
After being were we a goal down? No, we weren't a goal down, were we?
No, we weren't a goal down, but still won. Anyway, good.
Yeah.
I mean, as we alluded to prior to going live, I spoke to 3 different people, one of whom is a researcher for 5 Live Sport. And along with reading your Yellow Pages of Doom, Tavs, and numerous other people have gone to the game. And I'm not entirely sure whether any of you were there, because you've all got very, very sort of contrasting views about what happened. I'm trying to sort of piece together this sort of Sherlock-esque puzzle to sort of try and get a picture about what happened. Watch the highlights. One thing I would say is that our goal was absolutely sublime. And yet again, Zane Banton is proving the absolute pivot of everything positive, which is fantastic for us. What I would say is one of the regular supporters that I spoke to said we weren't ruthless enough. You know, we had quite a lot of the ball in the first half, and yes, we were getting out wide and we were sort of getting behind the back of their fullbacks, etc. But the balls in were quite lazy. There was no purpose to them. But again, Kidderminster, they're not a bad side, and they look strong enough from the highlights. But one thing I would say is that I've pulled the saves that Berry's been making, Saturday in particular, and obviously the last month, going off piece to touch, if I may. Do you think there's a scenario that we get to sort of keep him for a touch longer, even if MJ's fit? Because MJ, fantastic keeper, one of the best we've had in the last sort of few years. But again, grass is always greener. There's always someone better. There's always someone that can enrich your side greater. Where do you boys sort of sit in if we are allowed to have him for further and MJ is fit? Does it unsettle MJ, or does Nobby just sort of think of a big picture in getting the quality players playing for the side?
I'll go first on that, Jake, if you don't mind, because I saw him obviously Saturday and not last night. A couple of people I was talking to last night were actually talking about the same scenario, Lee. Can we get him maybe for the rest of the season, keep him on loan for the rest of the season? It's good for Norwich. He's playing competitive football at a decent level, and they get plenty of action behind us. So if you get him, I don't see that Michael Johnson gets back in the side. Because at the moment, the way Berry's playing, no way he could be left out. And particularly if you get him on loan for the rest of the season, Norwich City aren't going to want him sitting on the bench. So if we do a deal like that, if it's possible, he will be playing. And then you don't want a good keeper like Michael Johnson just sitting on the bench. He wouldn't want that either. It's a difficult situation. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Although I think Johnson would relish the challenge. I think he'd be very eager to try and put himself up against a keeper that is at a championship club on loan. But yeah, I think Dylan Berry's been a great acquisition. I think he's shown almost everything you want. I think you can see he's grown as well since his first game when he looked a little bit shaky on a couple of crosses and he struggled a bit. Looks much better now. As you said, I think it would come down to, if Johnson did get back into being the starter, how long would Dylan want to stay around? But I mean, I'm a big fan of his, and I think if we could keep him a little bit longer, I think that would be a great bonus. And it's always healthy to have a bit of a challenge there, isn't it, in terms of who to pick as a starting number one? And I think it would be brilliant. But as you say, we'll see, and we know that other clubs are already looking at him and thinking about could they bring in Dylan. So it'll be an interesting time coming up. I think Johnson's back in training, isn't he? But I don't think he's using his hand yet. So it's a little while yet.
Thank you for the medical update, Jake. Much appreciated.
Probably wrong.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all of the same opinion of Dylan Berry. If anything, keep him. All well and good. Talking of players coming back, because same night we lost Michael Johnson, we lost Michael Clark, and he was back last night in the Senior Cup tie, which we'll come to in a minute. So at least they're getting back there, so we get a stronger squad. Because that's one of the things from Saturday. You look at our squad, and what was there on the bench to change the game? Manash Sandir came on. He's not looking like he did 2 years ago at the moment. He's not firing, which is a big disappointment. We know what he can do, and we hope it come good, but we're not seeing it at the moment. You're chucking on 17-year-old George Morel again. It's asking a lot in a big game like that. Obviously, he's got to mature, and it's good experience for him, but we needed something more experience really to throw on there and unsettle them. But again, I go back to, we've got to change our attitude. We've got to be more attacking. We saw it Saturday and we saw it again last night. Not only were we pulling everybody back at corners, we had everybody back inside our 18-yard box. There's only one place the ball can go if somebody nods it out, just straight to one of theirs, and we're back under pressure again. This negative thing, I don't understand it. When Nobby started, we had one man on the halfway line when we defended corners. Then he even tried it with two. Now it's nobody within 30 yards of the halfway line. And we've got to get back to a more positive mentality on the pitch.
Yeah, Dave, right at the start of the episode, you mentioned Eastbourne. And I think if you do put the context of the Kidderminster game and the performance as you talk about it with that Eastbourne game, I think there's a slight area of concern there. And I'd just say a little bit of confusion as to why have we suddenly gone to this maybe more of approach. I think I can understand it to some extent against Kidderminster because they do have good players. And they train, I think, 3 mornings a week, is it? But Eastbourne, that game, I think it was, we didn't impose ourselves enough. And I say even second half, when we had the ball, we still just did not get forward enough, did we? We just didn't have enough shots on target. So I think it's definitely something for Nobby, or newly appointed Nobby, to think about, because at the minute it's not quite working, is it? And with some important games coming up, you can't be playing like that against the likes of Bath because they will take full advantage.
Because at Hampton, when we won 6-0, it wasn't a 6-0 game. No way. Hampton could have been at 3-3 really if they'd taken some of the simple chances they had come their way. So that flattered us. But the thing was there, when we got the ball, we did attack quickly. And now we've gone a bit more tentative. we're trying to make sure we don't lose possession. Well, you ain't going to score many goals if you're passing the ball along the halfway line.
No, not at all. And does it coincide with Nobby's appointment, or what are we thinking, Lee? What do you think? Because it's something we haven't really had a chance to discuss so far. So
I think what you have to appreciate, boys, is that what Nobby has done in a very short space of time has been a breath of fresh air. However, the underlying fact of all this, he's still got the same players that Ian had at his disposal. I think the way the players played under Nobby when he first was in the dugout would emphasise just how tired things were under Ian towards the latter side of his tenureship. But that said, the players, the investment still needs to happen, and I think that now that Nobby is solely in charge and is fully in charge, I think this is a narrative we've got to keep pushing. The fact that he's now the manager, and it's where the club want him to go. It's how far the club want him to take them. Because ultimately, if they're happy to just poot along, concentrating on the bigger picture, the ground, and all of this sort of stuff, then if Nobby's happy with that, that should have been relayed to him from the absolute start. The narrative is this: the players are still the same players that weren't performing under Ian, and I don't want Nobby to become the fall guy for some of their old mistakes. So I think investment is key still, and I'm not saying there's a massive overhaul. We've never even said that. Just one or two quality players. Look at the impact that Berry's had in goal, and if he can do that from goal, imagine how productive one or two midfielders can be. Quality midfielders. So it's not a massive override. It's just an appreciation of where the club are at currently. Tabs, I absolutely take on board what you said about the defending in numbers on the court, and I'm with you. I'm reading from that page. However, it's not as though we constantly break away and score goals from those situations. It's not as though we have absolutely rapid strikers that we can leave one up. I mean, Jeffers is quick, Banton's quick, all of that, but they're not rapid enough to, just have one of them up, just to have that outlet. We often try and play our way out of danger, and I think that's the Nobby way. You wouldn't see him, ball retention for him is an absolute key. And obviously, hoofing it out wide doesn't sort of fit into that tactics. I think you're spot on, mate. I think we leave ourselves open to this criticism because we are so negative in the defensive situations. You can be attacking whilst being defensive, if that makes sense. I hope it's just a blip. I hope Nobby's just finding his feet as well, because don't forget, boys, he's new to this and he's had some big decisions to make over the last sort of few weeks. So hopefully things are going to settle down and he's going to get given a few quid to sort of spend on the players that he would like. And hopefully we can start building from those foundations we had a month ago.
Because the other thing, if you leave the players up in the corner when you're defending one, you're not looking for greyhounds up there. It's great if you got them, because then they can just chase after the ball. But what it does, it takes 3, maybe 4 defenders out if you put 2 blokes up there. So you've got more space around your box to work to try and clear it creatively, rather than just whack it where you can't go anywhere. And I'd like to see us, we all would like to see us take a more positive attitude out there.
Yeah.
But maybe I said more about the opposition, in the confidence in the opposition that they have in their strikers than it does in our defenders, because the case of the matter is, yes, we haven't been conceding as many goals, but he's had to chop and change the defence so much over the last month or so. I think maybe just having a few more players in there might offer them a bit more stability in situations like that. But look, we are picking holes in a team that was rock bottom 6 weeks ago. They've now got themselves off of the canvas and are competitive again. So I think for that, we've got to be thankful. And although the defeat wasn't great, coming out of the trophy is never good, especially at home as well. The home form needs to be looked at. I think we've got to take it into the bigger picture. And I think don't forget as well, there's got to be some still uncertainty as well around, the players are thinking, who are we playing for next week? You know what I mean? And I think Saturday was a culmination of just a bit of sort of okay, right, now we've got to get down to business now. Let's reset and sort of work our way out and work for Nobby, which they have been doing. But it's not an instant switch, because these players are where they're at for a reason. And Kidderminster, they're a good side.
Well, there are grounds for concern, because Eastbourne, they were mid-table. We lost down there, created little. Kidderminster had lost 4 in a row and were down in 15th place, something like that, when we placed them. Cheshunt, way down in the relegation zone of National League South, and they did us last night down the park. So you talk about squad strengthening. I think that underlines your point, really, Lee. We do need some changes, because we're not picking up wins against sides you really should be beating.
I'm not entirely sure you can pick too much out of last night's result. I mean, the squad was pretty much a whole new 11. But I get your point, because a lot of emphasis has been placed on the youth and the B side of the club. They see this as like the next stepping stone to become a club as opposed to a team. And it'll be a learning curve for them all, and it was good to see Clarkey back, because he's been picking up 1 or 2 injuries of late, and it's important for him to come back fit. Cheshunt, would David Noble look at the result last night and think, you know what, I'm gutted we're out of the Hearts Cup?
No.
I can now, well, no, but he would have been more, I'm hoping he would have got more out of the performances of some of the key players that he knows he can bring into the side now going forward. I don't think Eastbourne was a killer. Eastbourne was it's a bad result, right? Let's say that. Kidderminster result, yeah, I mean, it's the Conference North, boys. There's some good sides in there. And you look about the squad depth. You spoke about Manash, coming in. Don't forget, yes, he was a good player and we know what he could have done. But don't forget, this was a player who was getting dicked on 3-4-0 every single game in the conference. That's going to do something for you. He's a good player when he played for us, but he wasn't a great player playing for Kings Lynn when they were bottom of the table for the entire, 8 months. Is that the sort of player we need to be enticing back? Maybe we look at the likes of Kidderminster and see how did they undo us? Was it the fact they were stronger than us? Were they faster than us? And then counterbalance that. Go out and recruit, play to our strengths as well, because I think at the minute we have to remember David Noble is learning on his feet. He's going to have Dean Austin behind him, and don't forget as well that we all wanted him as our manager. As far as we're concerned, he is the right man. But you've got to give him time. And I think as long as the club don't give him a platform to fail, then I think everyone's going to get along just fine. But it's still, I don't care what manager started that game on Saturday, it still needs investment in the squad.
One point you made there, Lee, about play to our strengths. That's something we're not doing at the moment. We're not getting forward as quickly as we should do to play to our strengths. What do you think, Jake?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a couple of positives out of the Kidderminster game for me. I think Smith, the young lad, he's come in and I think he looks pretty good. I think from what I've seen of him, even at Eastbourne playing out of position, I was pretty happy with him. And also Mitch, I know it's only 1 goal, but I think it's important that he keeps scoring, because you've got to try and take that goal scoring burden off of Jeffers. I know Jeffers has really hit form lately until the last couple of weeks, but you can't rely on him. We said that all of last season, didn't we? We can't rely on just him to be finding the back of the net, because you're not going to, he's a top, probably a 5 finisher in terms of quality in this league, but he's not going to carry you into a top 7 finish just on his own. He can't do that. So I think it's important that Mitch is finding the back of the net. And yeah, sure, it's disappointing to go out. As I joked last week, I don't think I've ever seen us have a really good trophy run, and I'd love to. But I think Nobby's building things coming round to him. It's positives. There's no point being overly negative. And as Lee said, we've got to give Nobby time. This is a new appointment, or what? It's midday Saturday just before the game. Maybe it might have even been later than that. So plenty of positives, plenty of negatives. But you have to remember, Nobby is doing a pretty good job with a team that not long ago was really languishing in the bottom half of the table, and we're still 7th. We're in the playoff places at the minute, so it's not all bad. But yeah, I think the home form at the minute is the biggest concern, isn't it? And we've got to really try and start to look to turn that around to try and keep people wanting to come to Clarence Park.
A point also made there about Nobby possibly not being too disappointed of losing in the Hearts Senior Cup last night with the side we put out. It's a shame. You don't want to blast the kids, but too many were thrown in at once. They played quite well. His game was played at pace. We had a few chances, but Cheshunt deservedly won, no doubt about that. But there were some encouraging things there. But the chances of that side winning were remote, and I just feel, well, what's the point then? The Senior Cup is still very much a worthwhile cup winning to win. And if you just gone with a stronger side, you could have won that game, which would have kept a bit of interest for supporters in another cup competition for the rest of the season. And we just tossed it away now. So all we've got is the league. We've got to stay in the playoffs to keep the interest in the season going. Otherwise, it is extremely flat. And also, it means if you'd had just a couple of kids there and a stronger side, they'd have got a game then. They'd have got maybe another 2 Hearts Senior Cup ties, which would help their experience. Now they've got nothing for the rest of the season because they won't be coming in for the league games.
Yeah, I think I can't argue really. I think that's a totally fair point of view. I think again the lack of squad depth really showed, didn't it? And of course, you've still got long-term absentees like Romeo Akinola, Liam Soul. I mean, when was the last time we saw Romeo Akinola? February. And these players have been out for a long time. And you mentioned earlier both these sort of those exciting players. You've got 2 players there that on performances with the Saints, especially Liam Soul, haven't been particularly exciting. Romeo Akinola got some decent assists last season, contributed a little bit. It's those sort of players we are missing. They've been long-term absentees. And there's never been any inclination to sort of sign a replacement, even temporarily, has there, from a club in the leagues above. So I think they're misses. And as you say, I think a run in the County Cup, I'm sure for a lot of people, wouldn't be too bothered, but it is still silverware. And this is a club that does not win much silverware, if we're honest.
Well, one thing I would say, Tabs, we went to the Hitchin game in the County Cup last year, or was it? Yeah, and it was a similar vibe. There was hardly any first teamers in there. Liam Salt actually played in that game, and that was one of his better sides. But then he came into the first team a few weeks later and was anonymous again. Maybe it's a deal that Dean Austin has got with. Maybe that's an agreement in place where the kids sort of feature more often than not in the County Cup games. I love the County Cup games, Dave. I'm with you, mate. There's a little bit of sort of old school, romantic about it. But the thing is, it doesn't benefit with the season we've got, the games coming up. The frequency of the games now, the frailty of the squad depth as a whole.
What you look at the fixtures after the turn of the year, Lee. We've got a lot of free Tuesdays. Hearts Senior Cup will fill it nicely.
Maybe, but we've got to get there first, mate. There was nothing to say. But don't forget that Cheshunt turned us over with our first team. So there's nothing to sort of say that, they weren't going to do the same as well. So go on.
Well, we'd have been happy to have a run in the FA Cup or the FA Trophy. They passed us by, so why not try and give yourself a run in the Hearts Senior?
Well, mate, listen. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But at the end of the day, these are the questions that perhaps whoever is reporting after the games and interviewing David puts them to him, because it would be nice to know the priorities now of David Noble, the football club, Dean Austin, and how they see the progression from the academy players. Is it they're just going to utilise the B team fixtures now? I haven't got a problem with them doing wholesale changes for the Hearts County Cup games, because don't forget, there's some good players that have come out of that. Hugh Dawson flourished in a couple of those from last year. Morel, not so much. Austin, I thought, Dean's son played remarkably well in the one against Hitchin Town. And, there's some fruitful elements to come out of them. But I just don't see the benefit at the minute, at this stage of the season, when there's so much uncertainty still evolving around the club, why they need. I don't want Sean Jeffers turning out against know.
No. Just that it was too weak last night.
Yeah.
It put a lot on the kids. Yeah, that could have been a stronger side. Last season at Hitchin's side, we had Zane Banton, Mitchell Weiss, Hugh Dawson, Liam Soul, Joy McKenna, and Alex Lancashire. So you had a far stronger side out there than you did last night.
Yeah, the team struck me last night when I looked at the full team sheet of the first team have gone training and they've sent the kids out, and I think that's pretty much it. Or they've just given the first team an evening off or a light training session, which I think was probably the reality of it. And so it's disappointing to bow. And you have to say, I think, no, I'm not going to have a go at any of the lads because, you know, by all accounts, they played well against a reasonably strong Cheshunt side as well. We have to say they put on a pretty strong side, including some former Saints. So, you know, no shame on the lads that are out there, I don't think, last night in losing the game. But yeah, would have been nice to take it a little bit more seriously. But then if we win 4-0 on Saturday against Bath because the lads got a bit of a rest last night, will we mind? I don't know.
But that said, though, one point that all of the when we were part of the media side, Jake, a lot of the players they would much rather have a game of any description than go training. Now that puts a little bit of validity to what Tavs is saying. Maybe it is the case of now that it was always the agreement that the kids were going to get the run out in this situation. Otherwise, yes, Dave, maybe our side would have been 3 or 4 players better off from the A side, but in a day, mate, we can go round and round in circles on this until actually someone asks Nobby or Dean Austin, the whole agenda behind it. Then we won't know. But it is disappointing because, as I said, Hearts Senior Cup, Hearts Charity Cup, always provided some good days out for us, Tavs, especially when we get to the finals, mate. But maybe next year.
I could understand it if we were still having the cup run or the trophy run, but we weren't. It was all we had left, so I thought we should have made a better effort just for supporters. I mean, let's face it, last 18 years, the only cup we've won is the Hearts Charity. It's the leanest spell in the club's history. So we need to arrest that, really.
Which managers did we last win that under recently? Anyone we know? Or?
Yeah, it was Golds and Grey, wasn't
it? I thought, didn't Ian Allinson win one or two as well?
Was it Ian?
Ian won one, didn't he?
He might have done.
Shows how much you know, Dave.
It's a long time ago.
Don't start him off.
So the important thing is the league form. So we turn to Saturday now. Bath City, terrible home record. Last 6 at home, they've lost 4 of them. Better unbeaten in the last 6 away. 1 point behind us, couple of games in hand. They just got back to playing after a couple of weeks off following that dreadful injury to Alex Fletcher. And straight into a winning stride in the FA Trophy at the weekend. We don't expect an easy one. We never do.
No, we know what Bath are like, don't we? I think last season they didn't have a great campaign, did we? The game down at their place at Twerton Park was probably the easiest game we've had against them in a long time. They just rolled over for us, didn't they? On a day where we actually made quite a few changes to the starting 11 and it worked. But the game back at Clarence Park, rushed into a 2-3-0 lead. And then we sort of just fell over, didn't we? And almost lost it at the end. 3-2, just about snuck past them. And I expect a similarly difficult afternoon. They beat Billericay in the trophy. You know, Billericay relegated last season. They haven't had the most amazing season in the league below. But to go there on a Saturday, after all they've been through as a club in the last few weeks, I think that was a really impressive win for them. I think you saw how much it meant to the players in their goal celebrations. And I expect it's going to be a really difficult game on Saturday. And it's going to mean a lot to these Bath players. You know, it's their first league game back since the incident with Alex Fletcher, who thankfully now looks to be on the long road to recovery, which is brilliant to hear. And we know it's going to be really difficult on Saturday. And I expect them to be in our faces, playing some good football. We know that Jerry Gill generally gets Bath playing nice, entertaining football. And I don't expect Saturday to be any different. So I think it could be one of the toughest challenges, actually, that Nobby has faced so far in the league.
Yeah, I think so. Any news, have you heard if they're going to do a collection at all for Alex Fletcher Saturday?
I haven't heard anything, no.
No. That'd
be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be nice.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'd be the only thing we give them Saturday.
Deary me.
It is going to be tough. Our home form, it's got to pick up. The gates have started improving, and now we've got to repave them. His hands are going to be tied. Nobby's hands, that is, assume are going to be tied for Saturday. It'll be the same squad as usual, unless he can get somebody in the next couple of days. But that's going to be the most fascinating thing, isn't it? What he does in the transfer market now.
It is, but also one of the things that I spoke to you about earlier on in the week was about what the expectations are of David Noble from Dean Austin, from a director of football, the owners, the players, and the fans. The fans have been calling his name and baying for the owners to sort of sign him up for a good part of a month. You mentioned our home form there, Tabs, and you're absolutely right in terms of the results. But the performances under Ian were dreadful. But I've seen signs of the last few home games under Nobby, bar Saturday, that performances are up. You know, it's a much better environment to go and watch football in, which is a fantastic starting point. I mean, from the owners, I think they're happy. I do not think for 1 second David Noble was their first choice. But I think he's almost forced their hand and played himself into that position. And obviously, when you hear all the supporters chanting his name, it would have been a very, very brave move for the owners to sort of hire someone else in the position of manager. That said, we're happy. I just don't want him to be the fall guy now because of the lack of commitment from the owners about what he wants. You know, he is a football man. He's got the dressing room. You can see that by some of the performances since he took over. But I think now it's time to kick on, and really the owners need to show the fans just how invested they are in the side. Yes, look, the ground will look after itself, and they can have as many discussions with the councils as much, but we don't care about that at the minute. We're on about David Noble, newly named as our manager. Give him the foundation he needs to take this club forward. As Jake says, we're still only 7th. And considering how we started this season, that's bloody amazing. Dave, it won't take a lot, mate, will it? I mean, we spoke about this time and time again. A couple of key areas, just address it. If we can pull off a signing like Berry in goal, then there's no reason why we can't get just two more to swing the momentum back into like the positivity sort of side of things and get us playing now. And then maybe we don't have the result of the Kidderminster performance where maybe was it a lack of desire? Was it a lack of education about how to play the game? You know, we need some footballers now. And I don't want the owners to say, we know what, boys, you wanted him, we've given him to you, and almost sort of like let him have as much rope as he likes, because that's just not the way it should be. Support the manager now. You've given him your trust, and then that needs to be repaid in terms of investment into the squad, because the squad is good, but it's not good enough to get us into the playoffs or really sort of challenge. We've seen that before. So why not just push the button and have a couple of signings now and see where we go?
Well, it's interesting. What everybody love to see with a Nobby out there is 20 years younger. The nearest thing we've got to it at the moment is Ben Smith, former Watford youngster, got released by them, went to our academy side. Now he's broken into our first team. He looks to have a potential to be that sort of player, sort of David Keenley side player as well, can just thread balls through and whatnot. Do we give him an extended run now? It's difficult to see why not.
Well, it was a concern that Nobby wasn't even aware of how good Smith was. He was reluctant to sort of start him, wasn't he? And he said, well, he won't have that reluctance again because he came on and was absolutely superb. So again, but little nuggets like that, you know, little tiny nuggets. And under Noble, Smith will absolutely flourish. And as you say, Dave, you know, very astutely put there, Tabs. You know, the fact is that Nobby could probably see a little bit of him in Smith. And what better person to learn the skill from than David Noble? There is none. There is none. So hopefully, you know, we can establish him, but that takes time, right? That takes time. And as you say, we've been a bit critical on this pod after 2 defeats. So imagine if you get 1 or 2 more, it gets a bit uncomfortable. I hope that they gave Ian all the time in the world. And I just hope that that is reciprocated in terms of what they give Nobby.
I know you mentioned a bit about Ben Smith last week. Jake, do you want to pick up him again? You saw him at Eastbourne when he came on at half-time at right back. He's been at centre and midfield the last couple of games. I think you saw enough there to get quite excited about him as well.
Yeah, and I think what I liked about him as well was obvious natural ability, but his confidence. And you need that confidence as a young player to play at this level. I mean, I was going to say, do you give him an extended run? And I think it's a bit of a risk because he's such a young lad. But if you've got that confidence and that ability, I think why not stick him in there? I think we've seen Hugh Dawson has maybe not necessarily flourished, but I think has improved under Nobby's guiding, I think, since Nobby's come in. And I think it could be exactly the same for Ben Smith, which is really exciting. And that's one of the good things about the B Academy is picking up these lads that are released from other local clubs, pick them up and see what they can do for us. And I think Ben Smith, if you want to chuck him in, you've got to, haven't you? Because he's got that confidence and that ability at the minute. And what better time to do it? And if you think he's good enough, then he's good enough to play. So why not?
Well, he's 18, doesn't turn 19 until next March. So time is on his side, but if you're going to break through, this would be a good time to do it. We mentioned Nobby then, we've mentioned the squads. It's been very disappointing, I think, that with Ian Allinson's departure now, not only as manager, but from the commercial side, the club, I think they should have played a bit more of a tribute to him. 6.5 great years we had. All right, 5.5 last year weren't so great. But he's been terrific for the club, hasn't he? And people really should pay tribute to what he did during his time with us.
Did you expect them to, Tabs?
I would hope so. I'd hoped a bit more decency about it. But it was very disappointing, dismissive, almost a single line, and off you go. Thanks.
Yeah,
good luck at Hendon.
Yeah, it's the sort of line that lazy press officers put out when, like, the tea ladies left. You know what I mean? Not like a manager of 5.5 years who've provided some of the best days this club has seen for years. Did they want to milk it a bit? I don't know. I mean, the fact he was still there. This is what we were saying. When he got sacked as manager or relieved of his duties, I found it particularly odd, especially odd that he was still there anyway. You know, it was never going to work out. And I think Ian soon sort of realised the fact that that he was never going to, work out himself. I would have liked a little bit more, if I'm honest. I don't know whether they've got something planned for the matchday programme on Saturday. I don't know. But it would have been nice to acknowledge the fact that 5.5 years of his life have been dedicated to this club. He's brought in some of the best players. He's brought in money commercially as well. But don't forget that. But if all he gets is a line or two, then I think that just tells you where the club are at the minute. Really shocking.
We've got two of our greatest FA Cup memories are under him. But obviously the win over Forest Green Rovers, Carlisle United match, 8 goals, 5-3, fantastic game.
Yeah,
we got great memories from there. The league, all right, we challenged for the playoffs a little bit here and there, maybe not as much as we should have done. But along the way, there was some very good football. It went awry in the last year, which led to his downfall. But I think overall, time will look at him favourably, and the club should have acknowledged it.
I know there was a lot of some fans giving a bit of jip because there was the potential for bottling certain situations in terms of challenging for the playoffs. Should we say? We got so near, and then we have our annual. The arse falls out of it in a sort of like February time. But yes, okay, maybe. But I think those fans seem to forget the campaigns under Jimmy Neighbour and the lasses of Steve Ketteridge and Richie Hanlon and Steve Castle. Because I'll tell you what, I'll take Ian Allinson's campaigns over those any day of the week. When you are going away to these godforsaken sides and and you're playing poorly enough as it is. I mean, it's not great. But the fact of the matter is, he has given us some absolutely fantastic memories to look at. And he will always be highly regarded at St Albans City. I don't know what they're going to sort of do in the bar now, because there's still that massive section of the bar where his mug still sort of sitting there shining down us or judging us because we're not buying Carlsberg. you know. So who knows, boys? Who knows?
I think that's a real clash of contrast for me, isn't it? That on the one line you've got that farewell statement of "see you later," but then you've got his massive face in the bar, waving to us all. It's really. I think it shows how much things arguably soured in the end between himself and possibly the club and maybe just certain people at the club maybe. And it's a shame, as you say. Great memories were in. I think we had great years working with him, didn't we, all of us? But then even after that, as supporters, great bloke, we'd happily express our views on here, and he'd happily still chat to us the next day at a game. He's a great bloke. And as you say, Lee, financially, how much has he contributed to the club in these 6 years in terms of winning, FA Cup games, TV money, and sponsorships as well? I think it's fair
I'll say his commercial role as well.
Commercially, I think the club is probably in one of the healthiest positions it's been in a long, long time. And a lot of that is down to him. I think it's easy for people to forget that he did have that dual role at the end of the day. So I think it's a shame to see him go in that regard, but as you all said, it was inevitable, wasn't it? By a certain point.
But the massive positive out of all of this, he's going to make the best podcast guest that we're going to have on here. It's going to be. I mean, there's going to be no holds barred. We've already been promised that, so that's definitely going to be one for the near future.
I think we've also got to say that he's left the club in a much healthier position than when he found it, hasn't he? Both off the pitch and on the pitch. When he came in, we were destined for the Southern League, weren't we, or the Ryman, whichever league we were going to be in. He's kept us comfortably, you'd argue, at Conference South level, which, as you said, a lot of previous managers weren't able to. And off the pitch as well, he contributed to bringing in much more money. So at the end of the day, you can only look at his tenure with us as a success, surely.
Well, I wonder what would have happened had he not been able to turn it round quite so spectacularly when he first came in, and we had gone down, as you say, to Ivy Ishmael or the Southern. You'd hope with his experience he would have got us back up pretty quickly,
yes.
but thankfully we never found out. It's just great memories from that run at the end of the season. He's only the third manager to be in charge for over 300 games, 302 games in the end, which is a phenomenal achievement, really. Shame he didn't have a league success really to back it up, but I think we're all happy with what we got.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame that he didn't really get a farewell, did he? From not necessarily the club, but from the fans or anything like that. And, to a lot of fans, I say a lot of fans by the end, probably wanted him to go. But I'm sure a lot of fans would have still liked to express their gratitude for what he did for the club. So it's a shame it ended how it did. But I think, I can only say thank you, Ian, for the good memories.
Right.
The time was right, boys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if you want to sort of be super harsh, maybe you should have gone in the summer. But that says probably more to me about him and his desire to succeed and his will to want to sort of turn things around. And maybe he thought the summer would give all of the players a little bit of like a fresh start, a reboot, if you like, come back into the new season, alive and kicking. But and although performances were slightly better and we weren't conceding as many goals, it wasn't good enough, really, was it? And you can see the players weren't buying into the ethos that he was trying to sell them. And it was the right time for him to go. But that doesn't detract from the fact that he's been, the instigator of some of the best games of football I've seen at Clarence Park.
I think at most clubs in the summer he would have gone, because that record, the second half of last season, was pretty shocking. So because of a good form before in the first half season, we had that great cup run. We brought in so much money, probably best part of 200,000 through the cup run with the gate receipts and everything as well. So that had bought him a bit of time. But it went wrong completely in the summer with the signings we made. They haven't worked out at all, the new faces. And the writing was on the wall pretty early in the season because of that. And yes, you couldn't see it getting better. And sadly, it probably was the right time for him to go.
Yeah, I think the big changing point, you talk about the summer, I think you could probably go earlier than that. I'd argue sort of after we got knocked out the cup and when we didn't invest in the squad and when we didn't strengthen the squad. And I think that is where things really went wrong for me. because you could see, we were talking about it constantly, weren't we? By January, February, you could see how much the squad was struggling, and it just never turned around. And in the summer he did bring in players finally, but it just didn't quite work.
And this is what I mean. That I want the owners to learn from that situation. I don't want them to just give Noble. I don't want him to have like an empty checkbook, but I don't want him to sort of just go along, pootling along, just that monotone mentality of it'll all be all right, And then we get into a situation where under Ian, we'll lose 2 games, we'll lose 3 games, and then we'll win a game, and then we'll lose another 2 games or 3 games, and then we'll win a game, and it's just delaying the inevitable. Where a little bit of investment, as you say, Dave, who knows where we would have been. And I think Nobby's shown that a new set of eyes and ears can really refresh a squad and refresh a club on the whole. But again, that only lasts for so long. That's only got a certain shelf life, and you're still going to need new injections of energy. But at this level, that costs money.
Yeah, we wait to see whether he and John Beeks, if they work as a team to bring players in, if they got connections, or if it's dealt with higher up the club. Yeah. Time will tell.
Yeah, but if it's dealt with higher up the club, they've still got to make those decisions, haven't they? They made a good decision with Dylan Berry. Now, can they do it in the rest of the team outfield? We'll see. Time will see. But hopefully, fingers crossed, Nobby does get that backing that he deserves.
Well said.
Right. We're moving on to Saturday then. A couple of people at Bar City I'm looking forward to seeing. We'll see them every game, home and away when we play them. So it'd be nice to see them down the park. And let's hope entertaining game and we put on a good show for Alex Fletcher and co.
Those people will be asking, who are you, when you go up and say hello to them.
I was going to say, is that like reciprocated, or is it just the fact that you sit that out?
I haven't got a clue, I am.
Oh dear.
Right, come on, let's have your predictions. Your 5-4 was wrong last night. Your 5-4 last night was wrong, Lee. 1-0.
Yeah.
Okay. Jake. 2-1.
I don't know. I'll go.
Be brave, Jacob.
3-1 Saints.
Not that brave, mate. Christ Almighty, there's brave and there's stupidity. Good Lord. One thing I would like to mention about Saturday is I'm not entirely sure it's on the club website. I doubt it. But the local council are kicking off an initiative. It's the White Ribbon Campaign.
Oh, yes.
Which, and a lot of the councillors and the leader of the council will be at the game on Saturday. It's basically to highlight and obviously prevent violence for men against women, especially given that it's the World Cup and England games often are the trigger for a lot of reports of domestic abuse. And the players will be wearing T-shirts, etc., and the club will be flying a white ribbon flag at Clarence Park on Saturday. So if you do see the councillors roaming around Clarence Park, don't kick them. They're nice people, some of them. But yeah, there should be some literature in the matchday programme as well, and hopefully on the website and the social media platforms going forward. It's a great cause, very, very important. And in this world of hatred and bile, it's always nice to have a little bit of love and support for initiatives like this as well.
I presume that's what the new flag has been down the park at the last couple of games. Wind didn't open it up to see it properly. So
I see. Right.
Yes.
Oh dear. Well, on that lovely note,
we'll see you at Clarence Park on Saturday.
Yes. See you later, everyone. Bye bye.
Take care, fellas. Cheers.